Mic check, 1, 2. Can you all hear me? I'm going to assume that it's time to begin. Good morning and welcome to the second day of Black in Immuno Week, where we have these lovely panelists here with us to talk about the early stages of their career. It's really a pleasure to be here, to be a part of this initiative, bringing all these lovely faces and very talented Black folk together across all different sort of expertises in immunology. And sort of before we start, definitely want to thank our sponsors, our major sponsors, the Deficiency Foundation and the Imperial College of London. Also, tweet out hashtag Black Immuno Journey. Today, we want to hear all about how you've got where you are now, why you chose Immuno, just a bit about your story about how you ended up here. For sure, shout us out. You can also submit your questions through Slido, hashtag 28858. That's the channel, that's the chat event number for Slido, 28858. It's also going to be pinned in the YouTube description as well. So feel free to send us questions so that we can ask our lovely panelists and get this discussion going. You can also submit questions on Twitter using our hashtag Black in Immuno, or also Black in Immuno Journey. And this video is going to be posted on YouTube, and transcripts are going to be made available on Twitter. And you can also check out our website for transcripts as well, 24 hours after the event at blackinimmuno.org. That's blackinimmuno.org. All right, so let's begin, shall we? Today we have a lovely group of panelists with us. Ms. Marilyn Allen, a PhD candidate in the biochemical engineering program at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. How are you doing today, Marilyn?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. I'm good. Thank you for asking. All right. And we have Mr. Ariel Calderon, sixth year PhD candidate in immunology at Stanford. How you doing, Mr. Calderon?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain.
Right. That's what I like to hear. All right. We have Miss Adryanna Jenkins, right? An undergraduate, early career, right? Undergraduate student at Penn State University. And hopefully a future MD PhD student. I'm an MD PhD student myself. Well, I guess I should introduce myself as well, right? But I'll do that after you guys finish going. And we have also Mr. Ashton Trotman-Grant, PhD candidate in the Department of Immunology at University of Toronto. How are you doing first, I guess, Adryanna, and also Ashton?
I'm doing good. It's a good time.
Great.
I'm doing well. Thank you, AJ.
Great. And we have Jada Suber, PhD candidate in immunology at UNC Chapel Hill. How are you doing, Jada?
Pretty good. How about you?
All right. I am good. And I'm OJ Stewart, your moderator for today, just here to sort of steer the ship that these people are driving or sailing. It's a ship, right? I'm a second year MD PhD student at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Doing a PhD in immunology starting this fall. So I really looking forward to the journey, getting to know you all a bit better, and really building upon this network of lovely Black people studying immunology. All right, so we have a couple of sort of preset questions that sort of guide this discussion as we go along, but if there's anything that stands out to any of you, any of our panelists, feel free we can focus on any one area that you want, doesn't matter. We're here to hear from you and your unique journeys. And also, it would be great to get some questions from our participants, our viewers online, so we can have it a bit more interactive. But to start, I guess the first question is, and anyone can really answer, but what does Black in Immuno mean to you?
I guess I can start. For me, Black in Immuno is actually really exciting because now it allows the opportunity to meet other immunologists who look like me. I mean, like quite often we go to conferences and we're like really excited to meet new scientists, but 9 times out of 10, like a handful of them look like you. So this is actually really exciting because I'm really looking forward to meeting other scientists who just look like me. So it's culturally enriching, and then it's also encouraging to think that the numbers of Black scientists are growing, and it helps me to actually see it because sometimes we're just like, is it really growing? Because like I don't see as many people who look like me around.
Yeah, so just to echo what Jada said, yeah, I feel like, logging onto Twitter and seeing just like all of the wonderful Black faces going like, oh my God, like where were all of you like when I needed to see this? Feeling pretty fortunate because I feel like there are a lot of Black immunologists in my immediate group. And so, um, seeing all of the Black immunologists just around the world just like filled me with hope and like a really warm, fuzzy feeling in my heart, I guess.
Absolutely, I agree. I echo both Jada and Ariel. It also fills me with a sense of pride and a bit of responsibility as well, being one of few Black people in immunology within our institution. You feel the need to kind of represent as best as you could. So when you go to these conferences and you're the N of one, when you go to boardrooms, when you go to committee meetings, when you go to classrooms, where you're the minority in that, you feel a sense of responsibility to do your best, put your best foot forward and kind of represent the other Black youths that are coming up. So sense of pride. And also it's amazing seeing yesterday the roll call and all the other people that look like me also coming online. It's wonderful.
For me, I think it's extremely exciting. As the rest of the panelists have mentioned, the representation, but also the platform that you all have formed to make this happen. So we're able to unite people across different countries or different stages of their career. So I think that's extremely important, not only for PhDs, but people looking for PhD, MD PhDs, people looking to get into the field. So I think it's extremely great to see this unfold.
Yeah, I agree with really what everyone is saying. I mean, I attend one of the 5 universities in the US that even offer immunology as an undergraduate degree. And it's a PWI too, so you don't see a lot of Black people in general. And so for me, just being able to see so many different Black immunologists and Black scientists, it's really motivational, I would say, knowing that, okay, yeah, like this is hard right now, but I know that I can do it. And I'm not the only person who looks like me that's been on the same path. So I know it's possible for me too.
I love it. I love it. I'm all down for those warm and fuzzy feelings, seeing more, similar looking people, in these powers of position, not only just being seeing more Black immunologists. So I guess another question that I have for you all, and I guess I want to ask particularly Ariel and Adryanna, just to get a spectrum, is in terms of what do you think has helped you be successful so far? And I really want to hear sort of get the spectrum of sort of from you, Ariel, being a 6th-year PhD candidate, and Adryanna, being an undergrad. What do you guys think has really helped you be successful to this point?
So Adryanna, do you want to go first? We can go like undergrad to grad maybe.
Yeah, we can do that. So for me, what really helped me be successful is just having good mentorship around me and people who advocate for me, and senior scientists who recognize that I am Black, and that's a difference, and that it's a big difference, I would say, in terms of a professional career, and that push me to apply and do things that I probably would not have otherwise done just because imposter syndrome or whatever the case may be. That's definitely something that helped me succeed so far in my journey. And then also just my family and having people around me where I kind of like have a comfortable space where I can also be myself and not just a scientist 24/7 or trying to conform to some sort of a standard that there is in academia.
Yeah. So to echo what Adryanna said, good mentorship, I think, is one of the things that is most important in order to, I feel like, make it really far just in academia, life in general as well. It's really helpful. So I feel like for me in undergrad, being able to see, professors that look like me or that came from similar backgrounds as me. My first research mentor was also someone who grew up poor and lived in the New York City projects the same way that I did. And so that was, I think, one of the biggest things where I was just like, oh, okay, I think I can do this because I'm not the first person to actually do it. I just have to do essentially something somewhat similar to what my mentor did. And so I think having those people also advocate for you, I think really is important. The other thing that I think is important is realizing that you're not a scientist 24/7, the same way that Adryanna said. Science is wonderful, but you're also a whole person outside of that. And you need to find ways to enrich your personal well-being outside of science. And so for me, that's taken shape in volunteering for diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts at the School of Medicine. I feel like I've spent quite a bit of time doing that. And there are often some people that would say, oh, you spend too much time doing that and not enough time focused on the science. But I feel like it allows me to do better science. It allows me to learn new things from different people all around the country, and I feel like I'm able to bring these things into my own work and also into my own life. And I think that is one thing that's really important, is being able to see, what are you driven for? What's your big passion? And keeping that passion central to what you want to do. And for me, I've always wanted to see more people that look like me and help more people that came from similar places as me to also be successful. And so that is one of the things that allows me to work best. And so, just because some people work best, always putting their head down and I don't know, trying to focus on writing their paper. Sometimes I need to just take a step back, and that's okay. And I think it's recognizing that everyone has different work styles that work for them.
Yeah, dropping some golden nuggets here. I guess a spin-off question to this goes out to Ashton, Marilyn, and Jada. What role do you think mentorship played sort of in your career development so far? And you can speak to both good mentorship and also bad mentorship. Especially the aspect of having someone advocating for you in spaces where you may be the only person of color there. You know what I mean? So feel free to speak about that. Whoever wants to go first. Well, let's start with Jada.
Well, for me, mentorship has been absolutely crucial throughout my entire journey. So I've had the, I guess, privilege of having really great mentors, leading up until getting into graduate school. So I think that helped me get there to start with in the first place. But once I got to grad school, I realized the importance of reaching out to get mentors that I felt like I needed, because you don't always end up in situations that are as ideal as they had been in the past. And so reaching out has been the most crucial thing to make sure that I'm always getting that mentorship that I honestly need. One of my mentors, who's also my PI, I'm going to plug her right now. She's probably going to be upset, but she's actually giving a TED talk on Wednesday, I believe. and she'll be talking about alpha-gal allergy. So you guys should all check that out. It's really exciting research, but mentors are crucial, and they always will be.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Jada. Mentorship is absolutely crucial. For me in my journey, I've had mentors, various mentors throughout my whole life. I actually happen to have a twin brother who's also, Ariel, you may know him, he's at Stanford University, second year in immunology. You do, okay. So we have a similar experience, obviously, growing up. And our mentor that's kind of influenced our whole direction of life, his name is Mr. Lendor, and he has a wife, Mrs. Lendor, back even before we entered undergraduate school or even high school. Him and his wife would, on Saturday mornings, would sit us down, would teach us some of the fundamentals of math and English, and even beyond sciences. They taught us, teach us about life, reflect on it together. And he's been a mentor throughout us, throughout my whole life. We can talk to him about anything, and he's also comes from an academic background. And my parents are traditionally educated, so that was an important mentor throughout my whole life to see what a Black excellence looks like. And then once I got to undergraduate, I've had, I didn't have obviously the privilege of having like seeing a Black professor in my undergraduate or graduate career, but you've had a lot of allies within undergraduate and graduate school who have been mentors to me. Specifically, I would say my PhD is a bit of science and business. So within the business atmosphere, I've had a mentor who's director of a business within a company we created, and he's been amazing teaching me some of the fundamentals of business, kind of me giving motivation, teaching me things that I wouldn't be privy to without that experience. So I would say those two mentors have really influenced the direction of my life. And I absolutely say echo Jada in that it's important for young people to kind of actually be intentional in looking out for mentors as well. And it's really good to see all these new faces that are coming up, because some of them are science, some of them are not, but I can foresee them becoming mentors for me in my life too. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I agree with the other panelists. I think mentorship has been extremely important for my trajectory. And I think my mentors have served a dual purpose, so not just mentor, but also sponsor. So making sure that I have opportunities throughout my career. And I think looking at mentors, I look at people who may be senior to me, but also peer mentors. So people in my network or friends have helped me continuously in ways maybe that my mentor or academic mentor may not, like personal things or just getting through some of the challenges of graduate school. So both those type of mentors, people who've also served as sponsors, have been extremely important.
Yeah, definitely resonate with a lot of the comments you guys made. Mentors are extremely important, especially having someone who looks like you or has similar experiences that you have had. I guess the flip side to this is being a mentee, right? And no matter how good your mentor is, as a mentee, you still have to hold your own weight. I want to ask, how do you keep yourself accountable as a mentee? And I guess we can sort of start with Ariel.
Yeah, so I feel like one important aspect of a mentor-mentee relationship is knowing exactly what each person is expected to sort of bring to the table. And I think, for informal mentorships, it's a little bit easier just because, you can sort of play that by ear as things progress. But I think that one thing that is important to have a conversation with the formal mentor is, what do you expect of me? And also, what do I expect of you? And I think that there's a large amount of power in being able to sit down and have that set of clear-cut expectations so that okay, when am I meeting expectations? When do I need to maybe work a little bit more? You know, and the other thing is that as situations change, you can also let your mentor know, hey, you know, I'm like going through a really difficult time right now. So I know that these are kind of the expectations that we have, but can we change them for a little bit of time because of external situations happening or things like that? So I think that really like communication on what your overall relationship will look like, I think is very important for formal mentors. And I think, yeah, for informal mentors, it's okay to sort of play things by ear, but that's what I've found I've had most success in all of my like formal mentorships with my PI, committees, you know, things like that.
And what are your thoughts on accountability as a mentee, Jada?
Well, I definitely agree with Ariel. So communication and setting expectations are absolutely crucial because it can lead to disaster if those two things aren't going the way that you basically should have them set in the first place. A big thing for me has also been just holding myself accountable. Is I remind myself often that I want this PhD and nobody else is going to get it for me. So at the end of the day, if I want it, I have to work for it. And so even on my days where I don't want to do as much, it's just a constant reminder that, listen, you want to finish and you don't want to stay here for the rest of your life, and you have to get this done. So, and that might sound harsh a little bit, but at the same time, you have to constantly remind yourself, like, the only person who can get this done is me.
That's definitely true. Nobody's going to do the work for you, right? What do you think about that, Adryanna?
I agree with what both Ariel and Jada were saying. It's important to have a conversation with any potential mentor that you might have formally, just asking, what will this relationship look like? And then self-reflecting also on top of that and being like, okay, is this something that I think I can do logically? Is this good for my mental health or my well-being? And deciding whether or not that's a mentorship relationship that you also want. And then like Jada was saying, holding yourself accountable as well and realizing that there's other people who are investing in you as well. And it's not like it is you, right? And you're here and you're doing this, but there are so many people who helped you along the way to get where you are now, and that you need to really make the most of all the help that they gave you, really.
That is so true. So true. I want to throw, I guess, a personal question in here. We have a question from Slider that we'll get to in a little bit, but Ashton, so that you started a company, right? What was that process like? Sort of what was the motivation for that like? And just in general, can you speak a bit more to that venture?
Sure. So my PhD is involved in T cell development. So I study the cellular and molecular interactions that define a stem cell into a T cell. And then part of my PhD is also developing technologies to allow for the scalable production of T cells to translate engineered immunotherapies for different diseases. But part of that process, first couple of years, develop technology. When you have a discovery, when you translate it, there's two options. You can license it, or you can create a startup with that. So with my professor and myself, and also a collaborator, Dr. Peter Zanstra, and his student, Dr. Schreyer Shukla, we decided the best option would be to create a startup of it, to commercialize it, and also combine different technologies as well together. So my role within that was the science, was the technology, and through that experience, I learned about patents, I learned about tech transfer, I learned about the business behind a lot of the sciences, and understanding why it takes business to actually translate some of your therapeutics into the clinic. So that whole experience was extremely interesting to me, and something that really drove the next 2-3 years of my life and what things I want to approach. So I know now through that experience that what I want to do is have a career as a hybrid of science, and also that incorporates some commercialization, some kind of business behind it too. And then through that experience, I've also been able to have a lot of different influences in my life And met amazing people through that journey. And I'm just super grateful for that opportunity. So it's been a fun journey so far. A lot of the company, it's called Notch Therapeutics. A lot of the company I'm in Canada. A lot of the company has gone to Vancouver, some in Toronto now. We have a lot of employees who are expanding. And you learn how companies create, like through seed funding, through Series A, the capital that's needed to actually translate some of these therapeutics. So you learn a lot than just what you normally get in a PhD experience. So I'm super grateful, and I'm learning a lot from that experience. Absolutely.
It's really great. So for others in their early phases of their career, there who maybe students of color just like us, how would you recommend to them sort of venturing out into this space?
Absolutely. So I guess it starts with what kind of PhD project you're working on, though. So I incorporate engineering principles within it, and that's a bit more conducive to translating. But even if you're in a pure immunology or basic science area of research, you can absolutely still translate your work. But if you're young and you're trying to get into it, I would absolutely, kind of what Jada and some of the panelists mentioned before, is being intentional and finding mentors within that space that can help you get through that journey. So if you're a first or second year, is interested in going industry or interested in even entrepreneurship, startups, that kind of stuff, in parallel with your PhD, don't feel afraid to actually reach out to incubators. So accelerators allow you to help you, give you capital to kind of accelerate your ideas into the start world. Be intentional with asking some of them for advice and being friends with some of those people. And also, you can read about biotech startups all the time. I'm on Twitter. You can reach out to myself or anybody else within the biotech sphere. I promise you a lot of them would be open to talking to experiences. So I think the main thing is communication and just being intentional with what you want to do and being in those kind of incubator settings where you can just get that experience of how to create a company.
Awesome. Next, I want to pivot a bit to sort of understanding the motivations for each of your research experiences, particularly your dissertation research currently. And I want to start with Marilyn because I saw that you're doing a bit of lupus work. And I think we all have an idea that lupus sort of predominantly affects Black or African-American women. So what was the motivation of choosing that project? And could you just tell us about that project in general?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. Just what you said, I was very intentional about the project that I chose. And I decided to work on lupus as a disease model because of that main point, that it does impact women of color, particularly Black women. So I talked to my advisor and devised this idea to use nanoparticles as a drug delivery platform for people living with lupus. But I think it was part of the great mentorship that we kind of mentioned earlier. And my mentor, my PI, seeing me for who I am as a scientist, but also as a person. So he was very supportive in this idea and the background of my idea of using my intellectual privilege of being a PhD student to help my community with this like thesis idea.
Awesome. I guess, Ariel, do you want to talk about your motivation to choose your project?
Sure. So my project is centered around trying to figure out how human NK cells develop. One of my main interests really is in that we've learned so much about immune cell development from mice, but sometimes it's a little bit, I guess, wonky to say when we translate it to humans. So really, I wanted to be intentional in trying to figure out how we can find progenitors that give rise to NK cells. And in particular, I was interested in NK cells because everyone mostly, sort of pays attention to T cells and B cells. Everyone really likes the adaptive immune system. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was interested in trying to carve out a space sort of like within the more, I guess, innate aspects of our immunity and figuring out how they develop. And there's been a lot of literature debates as to like where they come from. And so I figured that this was like really an interesting problem that I can kind of get into, and one that the technology that we use, which is mass cytometry, was really suitable to enter. And so we've tried to figure out using molecular regulators, so transcription factors or different regulatory enzymes, where NK cell progenitors lie within the bone marrow. And so that's sort of the, I guess, the 1-minute version of my thesis. But yeah, so it's particularly around, there's a big disconnect within mouse to human immune cell development, and utilizing cool new single cell technologies in order to solve that disconnect.
Nice. NK cells are important too.
Yes, they are. Like, it's funny, I have a slide in my research where I always just go like, yeah, they're like the ugly stepsister from Cinderella that like no one ever pays attention to, but they're important too. And also, like, everyone wants to use them for cancer therapeutics now too. So, you know, figuring out where they come from might be important.
There you go. There you go. Jada, I see you have a B cell sweater on. Is that linked to your project?
Yeah, it's a mast cell shirt. You can't see high enough. I'm too cut off, but yeah. So I studied mast cells in the context of food allergy. I actually had food allergies, or still have food allergies. I found out when I was 7. And as a kid, of course, I was devastated. And I was like, oh no, now there's certain foods that I can't eat. But at that time, I kind of challenged it or switched it to, okay, well, maybe I'll become an allergist when I grow up. And then as time went on, I eventually stumbled across research, honestly, to make myself a better applicant for medical school. And I ended up falling in love with research. And then somewhere along those lines, I ended up going, okay, well, I want to do food allergy research. If I'm going to do research, I want it to be in food allergy, because it would mean the world to me to be able to somehow contribute back to that community, knowing how devastating it was for me as a kid, and sometimes in my adulthood too, having to deal with food allergies. So I'm looking for the day that my research actually does something different, but just being in the field alone is a lot for me. So on the days that I honestly feel like I'm sick of everything, like experiments aren't working, and the people around may be a little crazy at times, and it's just like, I'll never want to give up, because it means a little bit more to me than just doing research. Like, this is deep, hard rooted. Like, this means more to me than a lot of things. So it's just like, I can't give up on all the other little people or the little kids who might be devastated right now due to their food allergies. Like, I want to do something to help them. So that's my little soapbox.
We appreciate your work. Adryanna, could you speak a bit about, I guess, the project that's been most important to you during your time in undergrad?
Yeah, so that's a good question. I've done a couple of projects and they've all been very important to me, but I would say my most important, I'll do two. My first most important one is the reason why I went to immunology in the first place. And it was basically looking at how immune cells recognize self from non-self in the context of biomedical implants. And that was a really impactful project for me, because there's a lot of people in my family who have biomedical implants, whether it be like pacemaker or different biomedical implants basically, and going through the literature and seeing all the different side effects and knowing like, oh wow, yeah, my family deals with this, or oh yeah, my cousin had that happen to them as well. It was very impactful in my life, and I decided that I wanted to pursue immunology and learn more about this host response to different things in the healthcare field. And then I wanted to do a little bit more work in that, because that was just a small project that I had in a class. So I went to Yale School of Medicine and I did a summer program there, basically looking at translational medicine with the lung and immune cells and viruses. And that really solidified me wanting to go into immunology.
I'm going to pivot quickly to the Slido question that we have here online. And it's from Yvonne Jean. And Yvonne asks, when choosing where to pursue your education, what did you look for from institutions in terms of safety, inclusivity, and diversity? And also, was this a deal breaker ever? Do you want to start with that, Ashton?
Sure, OJ. Great question. I'm from Toronto, so it is multicultural, it's diverse, not in the academic center, but in the actual city itself. To be honest with you, when I applied for a graduate school, that wasn't something that I actually looked for going into grad school, how diverse it was. And whether that's a fault or not, that's just my reality. I didn't go into grad school looking for whether it is diverse or not, because I came from an undergraduate institution where it wasn't diverse at all. So I just assumed there's an extension of that. I just assumed that wouldn't be a major factor within this institution, and it's really not. But I would say that if you're starting out and you're going into it, I would, if I would do it again, I would look at seeing just representation. Like, are there any Black faculty that's in the institution? Are there any Black students that are currently in there? I know now, being in the position when a lot of undergraduates apply for graduate school and they get into graduate school, they are kind of sometimes funneled towards me because I can give that perspective coming from it. So as an undergrad starting into it, I would say, reach out to some of the underrepresented minority upper year graduate students to see how the program is. And then after you talk to several schools, several people within that school, then actually make a decision.
You want to touch a bit on that, Marilyn?
I didn't explicitly look for diversity inclusion as much as Ashton mentioned, but luckily really fell into this great fellowship, our health graduate fellowship at UMBC and UMB. So there's over 100 Black and Brown PhD, MD, PhD students, both at the medical school and at UMBC. So I think that was a great network and also peer mentorship opportunity. But the first thing I was looking at when choosing schools was mentorship and looking at personality fit, because I think that projects, you may have some really good times with your projects, some bad times, but finding someone who will be able to support me throughout all those highs and lows were really important for my decision. And luckily for my program, we have rotations, so I could kind of get to feel out PIs and research lab and research culture. But if I were to go back again, I would definitely consider what is the diversity of the graduate student population a little bit more closely than I did initially.
Got it. And Adryanna, sort of, since you're, I guess, the panelist here that's a bit closest to thinking about that, what are your thoughts?
Absolutely, yeah. So when I first started out, I actually wasn't thinking about feeling safe or comfortable at all in my undergraduate environment. And I actually had to transfer out of a school because it was racially uncomfortable. So that was a learning experience for me and something that I definitely don't want to repeat. And so going into a second time, like applications, I've been looking at the area that schools are in and seeing what the surrounding area is like. Are people involved with the community if it's a minority community? Looking at the initiatives that the university has set up to support their minority students, and if there's a support network already in place, if it's something that they're working on. I've been paying attention to whether or not they have a page dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion issues instead of just a statement, because every university has a statement, but do they have a web page dedicated to these things? Is there a team? Are there people who I can contact who look like me? Are they amplifying Black voices? And so these are all things that have been going through my mind when going through this process a second time, just to avoid any uncomfortable situations and be stuck somewhere for like 5 years where, I don't feel safe.
Yeah, totally resonate with that. So switching, I guess, to a bit more heavier questions, a little bit, given our current climate, um, how do you sort of maintain work-life balance during these constant reminders of Black injustice in this country? And how is it a privilege to be able to block out noise and focus on work? Um, and I'd like to start with Ariel.
Sure. So I think it's definitely a privilege to be able to block out the noise, so to say. Um, I feel like it's not noise. It's constant. It's constant reminders, really, of the history of the United States and what we've had to endure. And I think for some people, it's a little easier to disconnect from that because they haven't had to endure it, or it hasn't been present in their direct life experiences. And so I think it's 100% a privilege to be able to do that. I think that one of the most important things for me in terms of like work-life balance is knowing when you have enough energy in the tank to be able to try and work, and to not beat yourself up for not being able to. Earlier during the year, after the George Floyd killings, I just did not have the bandwidth to be able to sit down and think about my project. As much as it interests me, right? It wasn't something that I felt was particularly impactful. Or after Breonna Taylor, I was more concerned with, oh my God, like someone could walk into my house and shoot me right now and I'd be like unable to do anything. And so, my mind wasn't really on research. My mind was on how can I be okay and heal and really feel for like what is going on right now in the country. And it was particularly difficult because I wanted to go out and protest, but since I have asthma, I also felt like, that wasn't a good idea with COVID. And so there was just like a lot of these dueling feelings within me of wanting to do things and feeling helpless at the same time. And so, having a mentor that was understanding that I was not really in a good place to do work. And even if I could do work, at best, it would just be things that needed to be repeated again because my mind wasn't there, So I think it's important to be able to say, I'm going to take this time and really it's like you're grieving. And so I think that a lot of times, if people don't understand that, it's one way to explain it. Because you don't expect people to work when they're grieving, let's say the loss of a loved one. And so I feel like it's also pretty similar, like you shouldn't expect people to be okay when the world is literally crumbling down on us. And so I think that, yeah, that's kind of what I have there. Sorry if I feel like it was a little bit spread out because I ended up getting emotional halfway through. So sorry about that.
We appreciate the openness. How have you been processing these things during this time, Jada?
So I definitely agree with all that you said. It has been exhausting, I guess is the best word to say. I think it is absolutely a privilege to be able to, I guess, in the terms like block out the noise. I've had plenty of times, even before George Floyd, when there are all these countless other killings that are happening, where I would go into lab and like literally not want to be there. but the people around me are so normal that I start to feel guilty for having my feelings. And I've always thought this was strange because I know my feelings are valid. But at the same time, because they are able to block out the noise and it's not affecting them, I guess it affects me even more because now I feel bad that I really just don't even want to be there. And then you go in, and heaven forbid, you have to deal with any type of microaggressions and all this extra stuff there too. So it's just like adding fuel to the fire. But for me, I guess trying to step back and just take time to myself sometimes, especially after the George Floyd. It was, I guess for me, it was just kind of like getting away from both social media and work at the same time. And it was actually kind of hard to get away from work because I do remember specifically like being in tears or borderline of tears, and there was something that I needed to finish as far as like work or school is concerned. And I had to like suck it up. It was like you have to stop feeling for a little while and get this done. And it sucks that you have to do those things, especially in times like this. But that has probably been the story of not only myself, but a lot of other like Black students and faculty members in academia or workplace environments in general.
Yeah, definitely feeling all of that. Anything you would like to add, Marilyn?
Yeah, I think throughout this time, gave myself a lot of grace and just came to terms with the fact that sometimes things won't get done. And I think throughout the process, it's a constant reminder that with or without a PhD, will always be a Black woman in America. Like that title wouldn't change my circumstance whatsoever. So it is, as Jada mentioned, tiring and hard to see people go about their day like nothing happened. But I think throughout the time, it kind of strengthened my cause to make sure that I continue to reach back into my community, continue to advocate and make sure I speak out or do what I can as a researcher, but mainly as a person in this country.
I know, Jay.
Go ahead.
I would like to add that as a Canadian, we follow, I think, American politics more than we follow Canadian politics, actually. But at the peak of the protests in the summer, it was, personally, it was very hard for me as well, partially because the narrative in Canada, as some of the people that say, is that we're not as racist as America, we're different. But we still absolutely have racism in Canada as well. So it was very difficult for me to hear that back home. And also, you don't have the luxury of being able to talk to other people within your lab or a lot of your other colleagues about how you're feeling, whether you're frustrated, whether you're angry, whether you're sad. It's an awkward kind of conversation to have with someone that doesn't understand it. So I'm privileged to have my parents at home that just, at least during the peak of it, just having those conversations on a daily basis about how you're feeling. Your concerns are absolutely valid, what the solutions may be. And then I would say that I also had the opportunity to speak to our the head of EDI here, the University of Toronto, Department of Immunology. She's I think the only one that actually reached out during that time of discomfort and pain, and to check on how we're doing. So I think other academics, other professors, during that time or through other instances that's bound to come up, I think I would implore them to actually reach out to their Black students specifically and check in on them, how they're doing, and maybe give some kind of compassion towards them, because they're definitely going through some stuff during those moments.
How about you, Adryanna?
For me, it was definitely difficult. I was studying for the MCAT, and so I was supposed to be in this headspace where, you're really focused on your work, and that it's like that's what you eat and breathe. But I couldn't even do it, and I just made the decision that I was going to put it off until next year, and just apply to master's programs for now, and that's exactly what I did. it was especially difficult for me during that time too, because while making the decision or feeling guilty about not being able to focus and study for the MCAT, you look for resources online and things, and you see like people who are not Black who are online complaining basically about, you know, all the protests and things, and oh, my MCAT might be canceled because, you know, there are people outside doing X, Y, and Z, or I can't focus because of all the people doing this. And I'm thinking, like, that's what you're going to spend your time on, complaining about it, instead of, you know, being supportive or trying to have some sort of compassion or understanding. And so that's why I really had to step away from that. And I think Ariel was mentioning he does DEI things on his campus and everything. And so I'm heavily involved with that as well. And I'm one of the only programs in the Honors College at my campus who focuses on DEI issues. So even when I wanted to maybe like pull back and just take a day off to just think about myself or clear my head, I couldn't do that, because then, you know, there were administrators and everybody kind of looks at you as one of the only Black people on your campus or in your college, and you're expected to fix everything or make all the problems go away that they're now being called out for. And so that was really tough for me. It was hard. It was a personal sacrifice. I'm glad that I decided to do certain initiatives though, and try to establish things that will help all the underrepresented students who will succeed me at my campus. But it wasn't easy, and it's a balance, really.
Yeah, a balance for sure. And in the interest of time, I'm gonna merge two of the questions that are coming from Slido, so we can ask our panelists, and they're mainly surrounding resources that have helped on our journey, on your journey in general, and what unique programs students who are looking to sort of get into PhD programs or medical school to study immunology can look forward to applying. And anyone who has a burning point can answer.
Hi, OJ. Oh, wonderful. So at the University of Toronto, we have this year and previous years, we have a lot of different initiatives to kind of target high school or the youths into pursuing immunology. So one is called Beyond Sciences Initiative, beyondsciences.org, where we host online conferences. Before online conferences became the thing, we used to always host online conferences for international applicants to present their research work. So we have chapters in Africa, we have chapters all across the world. And then we also allow for those people that won't have the opportunity to go to a conference to present their work in an online platform. And then this year, to keep the momentum going from the protest this summer, what we try to do is partner with different organizations in Toronto and internationally that actually allows for development of different workshops and different curriculums for high school students. Because I really believe that although there's a lot of systemic barriers that's not allowing for recruitment of graduate students and Black professors, I really think it starts from the younger generation. They are not interested, a lot of them are not interested necessarily in science. So if we can show what a Black scientist looks like, we can inspire them to pursue science or the love of immunology. That's important, and that's what we're trying to leverage. We also have different programs at the University of Toronto, where it's called RASI, where we allow for students, high school and undergrad students, most undergrad students, to get access to a research laboratory so they can experience what doing research is. So when it comes time to actually apply for grad school, they actually have that on their CV that they actually done research. That's one thing that we're not seeing currently in a lot of applications.
So Jada, I see that you went to prep at MUSC. I actually did prep here at Sinai as well. Could you, I guess, speak a bit to your experience there and how you went about finding the program and how they helped you get to where you are now?
Absolutely. So I have a special relationship with MUSC because before even I applied to prep, I was actually a summer undergraduate research student there. So that opportunity actually was the first research encounter that I had that kind of made me fall in love with research in the first place. So any summer undergraduate opportunity are always ideal because it allows you to have that research experience that they're looking for grad school. As far as the prep program is concerned, I actually applied to MUSC as a graduate program and didn't get in the first time. And then was reached out to by some of the people about this prep program that they were just starting at MUSC at that time. And they were like, you could probably do this, and this could help you for the next go round when you're trying to reapply into different graduate schools. And it turned out to be a huge blessing because it gave me opportunities to get research in immunology because I actually have a bachelor's in chemistry. So before trying to get a PhD in immunology, it's good to have some kind of experience in immunology as well. So it was a nice segue into immunology, the field itself. And then also it allowed me to, I guess, broaden my views on different institutions that I actually was applying to, because UNC wasn't even on my list until after I went through my prep program. So prep was crucial in me getting to UNC in general. So they definitely helped with studying for GRE, just research in general. We got to attend different conferences like ABRCAMS. I actually met one of my PIs through a secondary conference that one of the faculty members over prep actually saw because she knew I wanted to join his specific lab because it was food allergy. She was like, hey, this conference is going on and he's talking. Do you want to go? So it opened a lot of doors for me, and I'll forever be grateful. So if people find prep programs, definitely apply to them.
Yep, and for our viewers on YouTube and whoever sort of reading the transcripts on Twitter, the NIH prep programs are funded by the NIH and hosted at different institutions. So Jada went to the one at MUSC in South Carolina. I went to one here in Mount Sinai, and they're typically programs that fund students to do research and probably take classes, also exam prep for 1 to 2 years. I ended up doing 2 years before doing the MD PhD. Jada, I'm not sure how many years you did, but prep is really a great experience, and you get to sort of be full-time in a lab, especially coming from undergrad where you can't spend all your time in lab. You may have to work, you may have to do classes, a bunch of different other extracurricular activities, but the prep program really enables you to focus all your time on lab before making that next step towards graduate school.
And then, so if I could also add one really good thing to do when you're looking for PhD programs to apply to. So Jada mentioned ABRCAMS really quick, but I just wanted to give it another plug. So it stands for the Annual Biomedical Researchers. I'm like struggling to, sorry, I'm like bad with the acronyms, but it's like this huge like conference for underrepresented minorities in science, and I went 2 years when I was an undergrad, and it was so spectacular being able to see just the amount of researchers there that, like, you know, you just get to see so much beyond just your home institution. And people working on so many different projects, and a lot of graduate schools will go and recruit there. And so they set up recruitment booths. And so I've been with Stanford for recruitment at ABRCAMS or SACNES as well, which is another one where it's mostly minority students. And they are great because they can give you fee waivers for applying. So I did not pay a single dollar for any of my graduate school applications, which is great because otherwise I would have been not able to apply to, at most, like probably 2 programs, given how expensive they are. And you also get a chance to talk to current students there as well. And it'll give you a good idea of what the institution is like. And so I 100% recommend going to these conferences if you can. And they do have travel scholarships available for people that aren't able to attend the cost because of financial constraints. So 100% I would recommend doing these conferences.
Thank you, Ariel. Before we end quickly in another 60 seconds, any last minute words from our panelists?
have to say thank you, OJ, and to Black In Immuno for hosting this. This is a wonderful event.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. This is a wonderful opportunity to meet other people.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time to organize this. I'm sure that it will be very greatly appreciated by a lot of future Black immunologists to have this resource available to them.
Yeah, definitely thank you guys for being here. We appreciate your time. Love seeing, more Black and brown faces in science, especially in immunology. And definitely want to thank our sponsors again for giving us the opportunity to be here and share this platform. And also the next event that we have coming up is a TEDx-style innate immunity talks that are starting now. So it was wonderful chatting with you all. Have a happy holidays. Be safe, be well. We need to connect on Twitter and wherever, but love and appreciate you all. Thank you.